it doesn't always look the way you expect. You imagine intelligence as something sharp, confident, almost effortless, someone who speaks clearly, decides quickly, and moves through life with certainty. But in reality, some of the most intelligent people you will ever meet move more quietly. They hesitate, they pause, they disappear into their own thoughts mid-conversation. And sometimes they struggle in ways that don't make sense from the outside. Because having an extremely high IQ doesn't just mean thinking faster, it means thinking deeper, wider, and often endlessly. And the paradox is this: the same mind that can understand complex systems, solve abstract problems, and see patterns others miss can also become trapped inside itself, overanalyzing even the simplest parts of life until clarity turns into confusion. That's the part people don't see. Let's start with something simple. Most people think of intelligence as an advantage, and in many ways it is. But when your mind processes information at an unusually high level, something subtle begins to happen. You don't just experience life, you analyze it. A conversation isn't just a conversation. It's tone, subtext, intention, contradiction. A decision isn't just a choice. It's a tree of possible outcomes, each branching into more uncertainty. Even a small mistake doesn't stay small. It expands, multiplies, echoes. Psychologically, people with extremely high IQ often show elevated levels of metacognition, the ability to think about their own thinking. But this doesn't always feel like clarity. It often feels like being stuck in a loop. You think about what you said, then why you said it, then what it means about you, then whether that meaning is even accurate. And by the time you reach a conclusion, the moment has already passed. There's another layer most people don't realize. When your mind is wired to detect patterns quickly, you begin to notice things others overlook, not just in systems, but in people. You notice inconsistencies, unspoken emotions, subtle shifts in behavior. And once you see those patterns, you can't unsee them. This creates a quiet tension. Because while others take things at face value, you are constantly reading between the lines. You understand not just what someone says, but what they avoid saying. You see how actions don't always match words, how intentions can be layered, even contradictory. And this level of awareness can make connection complicated. Not because you don't want it, but because you see too much to stay comfortable in surface-level interactions. Over time, something unexpected happens. Simple things stop feeling simple. Decisions become heavier. Conversations become more calculated. Even happiness can feel analyzed. Because when your mind is always searching for meaning, it struggles to just experience the moment as it is. You don't just feel joy. You question it. Where is it coming from? Will it last? What does it say about your life? And slowly, without realizing it, you move from living life to observing it. There's a quiet moment many highly intelligent people experience, though they rarely talk about it. It happens in conversations. You're listening, nodding, responding at the right times, but internally, something feels off. Not wrong, just disconnected. Like you're operating on a slightly different frequency. Not better, not worse, just different. Because when your mind naturally moves toward depth, surface-level interaction begins to feel exhausting. Small talk feels repetitive, predictable. Conversations that stay on the surface feel like they're missing something essential. And over time, you start to withdraw. Not out of arrogance. Not because you think others are less intelligent, but because connection starts to feel rare. Psychologically, this is often linked to a mismatch in cognitive and emotional processing speeds. When your mind moves faster or deeper than the environment around you, it becomes harder to synchronize with others. So instead, you adapt. You simplify your thoughts. You hold back ideas. You speak less than you could. And people mistake your silence for disinterest, when in reality, it's restraint. There's a common belief that intelligent people make better decisions. And sometimes they do. But there's another side to it. When you can see too many possibilities, choosing one becomes difficult. Every option comes with consequences. Every path has trade-offs. Every decision carries uncertainty. And your mind doesn't ignore those details. It magnifies them. This is where intelligence turns inward. Instead of clarity, you get hesitation. Instead of confidence, you get doubt. Because when you understand how complex things really are, certainty becomes harder to hold on to. Psychologists sometimes refer to this as analysis paralysis, a state where excessive thinking prevents action. But for highly intelligent individuals, it doesn't feel like paralysis. It feels like responsibility. You don't want to choose wrong. You don't want to overlook something important. You don't want to waste time. So you think longer and longer until doing nothing starts to feel safer than choosing something imperfect. There's something else that develops alongside high intelligence: a heightened awareness of yourself. You notice your flaws more clearly, your inconsistencies, your contradictions. You don't just ask, "What am I doing?" You ask, "Why am I like this?" And while that level of introspection can lead to growth, it can also lead to something heavier: self-doubt. Because when you can see every angle of yourself, it becomes difficult to settle on a stable identity. You question your decisions, your intentions, even your emotions. Am I reacting correctly? Am I overthinking this? Am I missing something? And that constant internal questioning creates a quiet instability. From the outside, you might seem composed, even intelligent, but internally, there's a continuous evaluation happening, one that rarely stops. There's a quiet loneliness that can come with a highly analytical mind, not because you're alone, but because you feel unseen. People may admire your intelligence. They may come to you for advice, for solutions, for clarity. But very few people stop to understand what it feels like inside your head. The constant thinking, the internal noise, the pressure to make sense of everything. And so, you become the one who understands others, without always being understood in return. You listen deeply. You notice everything. You offer insight when others feel lost. But when it comes to your own inner world, it's harder to explain. Because how do you describe a mind that never really rests? This is why many highly intelligent people learn to carry things quietly. Not because they don't need support, but because explaining complexity often feels more exhausting than holding it alone. At some point, something begins to change. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but slowly. You start to realize that not everything needs to be understood to be experienced, that not every thought needs to be followed, that not every question needs an answer. And this realization doesn't come from more thinking. It comes from exhaustion, from reaching a point where the mind, for all its brilliance, begins to feel heavy. This is where a subtle shift happens. Instead of asking, "What does this mean?" you begin asking, "What does this feel like?" Instead of analyzing every outcome, you allow some uncertainty to exist. And for the first time in a long time, there's space. Psychologically, this is a movement away from constant cognitive control toward present moment awareness, a state where thinking still exists but no longer dominates everything. And that's where balance begins. There's something important that often gets misunderstood. High intelligence is not just a strength. It's a different way of experiencing reality. It means seeing more, but also carrying more. understanding more, but also questioning more. It's not just about solving problems. It's about living with awareness that never fully switches off. But within that complexity, there is also something powerful. Because the same mind that overthinks can also create. The same awareness that causes doubt can also lead to deep empathy. The same depth that isolates can also connect in ways that feel rare and real. And maybe that's the quiet truth. You're not meant to think less. You're meant to think with balance. Not to silence your mind, but to stop letting it speak over everything else. Because intelligence, at its highest form, isn't just about understanding life. It's about learning when to stop analyzing it and finally begin living it.